So lately I've noticed that when people ask what I do or what's been going on with me, and this is outside of my sort of day job, my marketing job, I lead with words like healing or I've been on a spiritual journey. And there are times when that just immediately turns people off. Do we need to stop saying spiritual? Welcome back to Soulful Wonderings, the space where we search for meaning in everyday life and honor the lessons that help us grow. I'm Heather and I'm your host. And before we get started, we would love it if you would subscribe to our podcast. You can also head over to our socials and follow us there. And of course, all of that will be in the show notes for you to find. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I think I'm getting into this because it's kind of pissing me off. I mean, how dare people react that way? After all, it's what I said, right? What else are they supposed to do? But that's the rub. That's kind of the thing that is currently a thorn in my side, maybe. What has happened to me over the last 6-ish, longer years, it's really hard to put into words. And right there, I said, happened to me. How often does that instantly imply something bad? But this didn't happen to me in a negative way. And we've talked about this. I started my journey very much by accident. I went to a class to help me with a side gig that I was trying, and it was a mindset class, which to me sounded really woo-woo. But I mean, why? Mindset is not an inherently spiritual thing. Go to a therapist and see. It's very normal. And mindset is just like it sounds. Are your thoughts positive or negative? How do you talk to yourself? Then it goes deeper to the whys. Those start to come up. Why are you doing the thing? What's your motivation? All that's part of your mindset. Because trust me, when you lose sight of that, things can quickly fall apart. But there's the positive and negative factor as well. You're constantly saying things like, I can't do this. That's negative. That's what your mind really starts to hear and believe. Repetition is how you remember and learn things, right? Remember that from grade school? They made you repeat your multiplication tables to learn them. Repetition. I'm in marketing. What do? Repetition of your message is how people remember it. Repetition of the message that's in your head is the one you're going to remember. And if it's negative, then guess what? When you keep saying, I can't do this, that's what you're going to believe. But then you often go even deeper. Why are you saying those things? Have you been conditioned to believe it based on some type of treatment that probably started in your childhood? Was there a trauma associated with it? Now, of course, where it gets a little more spiritual, I guess, is when, sometimes in my circles, we start talking about things like, did you bring it with you? Is it an ancestral thing? Is it a past life thing? And I'll grant you, some people don't believe that. But you don't really have to go there. I can bet you money you'll find the answer in this lifetime. And that's all the negative things. On the flip side, you also have positive inner language. That's conditioning as well, but it's a good kind of conditioning when you are maybe, instead of saying, I can't do this, you're someone who goes, how can I make this better? Or I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get this right. You know what I mean? It's you're talking yourself up instead of talking yourself down. Here's the truth. I truly believe that most of us spend the majority of our adult lives trying to at least somewhat undo what our parents and society conditioned us to believe. And it's going to be different for each generation, and because so many things are cyclical, and what we went through as Gen X is different than what millennials saw, and it's different than what Gen Z is seeing. And I say our parents, it's not just our parents. It's usually who's around us, family, friends, all the things. And so when you start to figure that out and you start going, that's not normal, that's not right, you find yourself trying to kind of undo it and heal all of that. And for some of us, we're figuring that out when we've already had kids. So, we're screwing up our own kids. you know, it can indeed be a vicious cycle, but that's life, right? Like, I get some of this may sound a little bit all over the place. I don't know, but it's also probably a little bit vague because I'm not really getting down into the nitty gritty of it. I want to give a higher level of what I'm trying to say, because at the end of the day, the things I'm talking about, it's not just about healing, which is what I often say. At least I don't think it is. But why do so many people equate this to a spiritual journey? Why do I say spiritual journey? I mean, I must believe it because I keep saying it, but it's so much more than that. And in truth, you know what? It may be a bit of a cop out to say it that way. But it's been such a massive shift in my beliefs and just who I am at my core that I don't know that I have a big word, a word big enough to make someone really, really understand this. I mean, something that began innocent enough as a class. And then let me tell you something, it fucking cracked me open like a coconut hitting a rock. The feelings that opened up came in, it was a whirlwind. At times I was just overwhelmed just for the sheer rapid rate that they were coming in. Sometimes you go to a class and you feel like you've been drinking from a fire hose. They've been, throwing things at you so quickly. That's what it would feel like as you would uncover one thing. It's like it just uncovered millions of things at a time. And then I added to that I had this need to harness it. I needed to grab it and learn it. I didn't want it to be so out of control and stuck in this whirlwind. I wanted to calm it down where I could comprehend it and like I said, learn the things and really work on the things. This was this new thing. So what does it mean? How does it work? What do I do with it? And I'm telling you, it was layer upon layer upon layer that was just unraveling in a matter of weeks. Like I said, you'd uncover one thing and as you removed that layer, it's like 10 more things would just fly out. It was insane. My head would spin sometimes because there was so much that I was realizing in just one moment. But here's the thing, much of it, at least on the surface, had nothing to do with spirituality in the way many people will label it. It was simply inner work. It was just working on me. It was the same kind of work you do when you go to a therapist or a counselor. You're understanding an issue, you're discovering how to work through it or release it or change it. Maybe you're offering tools to really, seed that change and internally, and then when it comes up, know how to deal with it, because it's rare that you're going to find something wrong, let's say, and you're going to go, okay, that's it. And then flip a switch and it's just done. It's probably still going to come back up, but now you recognize it differently. You see it differently. You react to it differently. That's what you do with a therapist. Anyway, I guess the difference was some of what I was doing, it wasn't where the therapist or counselor route was not what we were using. Some of the techniques may fall more in the realm of what's considered spiritual. But the truth is, it was a bit of both. A lot of those techniques are things you learn. Again, I'm not a therapist, okay? Some of the people I work with, we're not therapists. We are not licensed therapists. We have not done that work. Okay, hear me. I'm not trying to insinuate that. But there are a lot of techniques and things that you can learn that are very similar to that. Um, and it's a bit of a mix. Kind of, there's some spiritual things that fall into it. Um, I think it's more the tools. Some of the tools we used were more spiritual, but you didn't have to use those. But the truth is, I think these days, kind of what we're doing, it falls into that realm of coaching. Everyone's heard about coaches, spiritual coaches, life coaches, all the kind of coaches. Um, my goodness, that is going to be a completely different conversation that we're going to have one day, because everybody's a fucking coach these days, right? Put it on a business card and suddenly you're qualified. Let me tell you, there are people that went to school for years to really be qualified. And I mean, as coaches, they have certifications, they have all kinds of education behind it. And then you jump to the therapy level, like I said before, that my goodness, the schooling it takes to truly be, a licensed therapist, or, counselor, or psychiatrist, psychologist, all the things. There's huge amounts of qualifications behind that. And there's some qualifications that people can get to truly be a certified, quote unquote, life coach or spiritual coach or whatever. I kind of hate calling myself a coach. But so often it's the fastest way to explain it to whoever you are speaking with so that they can understand it. They're looking at you with that little puppy dog head cocked to the side, that they have no idea what you're talking about. And when you say, well, I'm basically a spiritual coach, they go, oh, because there's so much of that out there that they can at least equate it to something that they understand. I digress. But again, it's so much more than that. And what I do now, especially, and this is where it probably gets spiritual, and in turn makes those who fear it go, you know what? No thanks. I use a modality called theta healing. A lot of people use there are different modalities. What mode do you use to help people? My mode of choice is usually theta healing. So people go, oh, so you're a healer. Again, when you say yes, that's often an immediate turnoff for people, because when they think of healer, it starts getting spiritual. It starts getting woo-woo. I actually use my intuition a lot, and I may say that, well, a lot of times I use intuition downloads. So, they say, you're a psychic. And you hesitate, because again, that's one of those things that kind of turns them off, because I'm going, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. But they're turned off. Another one of my little soapboxes is that I believe all of us have abilities. Some of us just choose to use them, and some choose to ignore them. And most of us are using them every day and don't even realize it. Again, different soapbox. My point is, when you say it out loud, people tend to go, you know what? No. And part of what I wonder is, do they say no because society tells them to? Because they've been conditioned to? Because their church told them to? Do they really believe that? Or is it just what they think they're supposed to say? Do you understand? Anyway, again, moving on. What's crazy is, often when I'm working with someone, something supernatural or spiritual may never even come up at all. I'm probably using essentially downloads or guidance from Creator. I'm using my intuition in that way. But the client may not even know that. The friend, I'm just trying to help because they've come seeking advice. They won't even really know that I'm using some kind of intuition. Now, let me clarify something real quick. I've been like this all my life. It's not like I'm, quote unquote, doing something. It's just who I am. I'm empathic. I pick up on things. I read people. And that's going to happen whether I try or not. That's been happening all my life, long before I knew any of the terms for what it was called, whether I really knew what was happening. I just knew that I could get a feel for people or read for people, and it allowed me to help them. Again, it's just who I am. Now, I just know what it's called. Okay. So back to the changes in the inner work. Um, I've been doing a lot of inner work. Some would call it shadow work because it's kind of, deep, dark stuff. I've peeled away layers. I've found traumas and conditioning and all manner of things that we've healed. I've primarily used a modality called theta, but um, you can also accomplish the same thing through hypnotherapy. I've done that. I've used other modalities. I've used coaching methods where um, they've just used different methods to help you change what your subconscious believes. Um, you could accomplish the same thing with a therapist. Do, do you get what I'm saying? Is this making sense? That a lot of it is all the same thing, and it's just inner work. There's not necessarily anything spiritual to it. It just may be a spiritual modality that's being used at times. So I think we've established that, to be fair, some of the methods may truly fall in what would be described as a woo-woo realm. Okay? And there are other things that have come up for me, I'm not going to deny that truly go to a spiritual awakening and go beyond just the basic, I want to be a better person inner work. So those things have happened, but really how it started and what we're really talking about at its core, that's what it is. Inner work. Okay, I feel like I'm ranting. Am I ranting? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm ranting a little bit. I'm on a soapbox over here. I told you it was bothering me because I can't figure it out. Okay, so just a second. Let me try to climb down here. I think what's bothering me is that I don't know what to call it. And when I say it in a way for them, the people I'm talking to accept it, it's a label. And I'm not even sure that it's the correct label. And my fear is that this person is curious, that they're a person that's seeking answers. They're seeking some kind of healing of their own. But for whatever reason, woo-woo things scare them. And so they think it's not for them. Hear me. Maybe it's not. That's fair. This is not everybody's bag. Even doing basic inner work is not everybody's bag. That is very fair. But again, what I'm going to say, healers, spiritual folks, whatever, what we do is very similar to what I will refer to as secular modalities. We just may call it something different. In fact, the people I know in that realm, we're not calling it something different. We're actually using the exact same words, calling it the exact same things, and often, again, are doing similar things to help. Sometimes if you're in a spiritual realm, there just may be some other things that happen. But again, hear me, those only happen if you want them to. Okay? It doesn't have to be quote unquote spiritual if you don't want it to. It could just be help and work that you're doing on yourself. So what do we do? What do I do? Because at the end of the day, I want the people who are seeking to find answers. If that's with a counselor, if that's with an energy healer, if that's with a combination of those people. So when I was working on names and such for my business, I kind of tried to go through what was important to me. What was I really trying to do here? And I landed on Soulful Wonderings because I find that many of us wonder, not wander. Well, we do that too. But how often do we think or say, I I wonder how that works. Wonder why they did that. Wonder where that anger came from. Wonder why I'm crying. Because sometimes the wonder is happening at a soul level, right? And often the thing that comes next is curiosity. So if the thing happens often enough, you start to look for an answer. You journey, especially when there's a catalyst that forces you to take a look at it. So as I kind of started realizing that, I started saying that I was a wayfinder. I'm a wayfinder for curious souls, helping them find their way on their journey. And a journey doesn't need a label because they are very individual to the person. Even if they're similar to someone else, they will always be unique to that person. But I'm still perplexed. At times I think I'm just scared to say the thing because either I don't want to turn the person off or I don't want to hear the judgment when it's not their thing. But I'm getting better at feeling secure in it. Because this journey is not only amazing, I think it's necessary. It brings you alignment. It brings you purpose. It heals you. And that will bring you joy. All of those things can bring you joy. And that's true no matter what path or partner you choose to take the journey with. So what do you think? Are you brave enough to be curious? I'll make a deal with you. If you'll be brave enough to be curious, I'll be brave enough to say it. You think? Better yet, I'll keep saying it until you're ready. And when you're ready, you know where to find me.